my name's Sonjia and this is my channel, See It Then, See It Now. Today's video is another furniture makeover, but just before we get into that, I just want to say a huge thank you to each and every one of you. My last couple of videos has had an amazing response and I'm up to 200 subscribers, which is phenomenal, so thank you so much. If you're a returning viewer and you haven't yet subscribed, then please do consider doing that. It does help my channel to grow. And if this is your first time to my channel, then welcome, and do please consider hitting that subscribe button. So today's project is a piece of furniture for the guest bedroom. Now, because the pieces of furniture that I've got for the bedroom are all odd pieces, nothing matches, just to try and get a little bit of cohesiveness, I have painted this one in the same colours as I did with the dresser. So it's the Dixie Belle, Dusky Blue and Haint Blue. Hopefully you're going to love it. So let's jump in and have a look. The first thing I decided to tackle was working out on how I was going to attach the legs. I will be totally honest with you, I wanted legs, so I bought legs without any idea whatsoever as to how I was going to attach them. So I am totally winging this bit. So the front of the drawers had a small block attached to the bottom plinth, and I was concerned it wasn't going to be big enough to fit the fixing plate onto, but it wasn't coming off without risk of damaging the drawers, so I just went with it. The centre of the fixing plate had a section that needed to fit down into the block by about 2.5 centimetres. So I had to drill down into the block until the hole was large enough for the fixing plate to fit flush. And then it was just a case of securing the plate with 3 little screws. I also needed to attach a fixing to the leg, which I will get to shortly. But once both were in place, the leg easily screwed into the fixing plate. I can't even begin to tell you how amazed I were when I got this first leg in. It was like some great achievement. I was so pleased with myself that I had actually managed to do it. Then reality kicked in that I had to repeat the process another 3 times. I'm also relieved that those blocks on the front were big enough and the legs secured perfectly fine. It would have been a major headache to get them off. They were glued solid and I'm sure that I would have definitely damaged the plinth if I'd have had to take them off. Unfortunately, the back of the drawers didn't have anything to attach the legs to, so I screwed in a block at each side. I'm just drilling holes here so that I can countersink the screws. These legs are a bit of a pain. They've come with just a tiny little hole in the middle and you have to drill them and put this into it, and it's a bit of a pain, so I need to make sure I'm drilling down straight. These legs look brill, but I'm not going to lie, I found fitting this fixing to them a real pain. The wood was really hard to drill into and you needed to screw the fixing in using a really large Allen key, which was not provided, and they were fiddly and they were hard work. Yeah, not the best. I will leave a link to them because they are amazing, and I'm not the best when it comes to doing stuff like this, so maybe it was just me. Maybe you won't find it as difficult if you choose to do it, but I just found them, they were a challenge, let's just put it that way. Should have come with them already in, what a pain. Okay, so the problem I've got now is that I've tightened this leg up and this is as tight as it wants to go, but it's backwards. This bit needs to be there. I don't know how to fix that problem, but what I'm going to try. Okay, so Becky really does not like it when I do this when I'm filming. I often start a sentence and then not finish it. So that was when it was tight. But in this case, I was multitasking. I was unscrewing the leg while searching the grey matter for a solution. And the solution was that I unscrewed the plate and I twisted it round and I screwed it back on, and then when I put the leg on, it then fit perfect. So the solution was there, and sorry I didn't say that all in one sentence. Yay! Whew. It's worked. Perfect. So now I'm going to do the same. You can see now I've got 3 of them in place. So this one's not in the right place. Perfect. Oh my word, I've got the legs on. Can't believe it. Okay, let's have a look. Now that the legs were attached, I moved on to cleaning the whole thing with sugar soap, and I removed the handles, and I also removed the bit of wood that was across the back of the drawers. I wanted to put some moulds on the drawers, and I went with resin purely for the strength. I want to put these across the bottom, and knowing my luck, I'll dunk them with the vacuum cleaner and end up breaking them. So I wanted something that would be really strong, and that's why I went with resin. I've never used resin before, so I just followed the directions on the bottle. I mixed equal parts from both bottles, the resin and the hardener. I set a timer to make sure that I mixed the two together for the correct amount of time, and then I poured the resin into the moulds. I helped it into the corners and removed any bubbles. Any bubbles I could see, I just moved them to the edges using the stick and just got them out with the stick the best I could. It did say in the instructions to use a heat gun to remove any bubbles, but the instructions were talking about a surface pour, and I didn't want to do this in case it wasn't for when you're pouring into a mould. I was worried the heat gun would ruin the silicone mould, so I didn't risk it. If any of you can advise on how best to get the bubbles out, then please do let me know in the comments. Got all these moulds that I've made from the resin, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come up with a design to go across the bottom of here so that it looks, I was going to cut, my original plan was to cut into this board to make it wavy, but it's not that big. If I go wrong and it doesn't look even, I don't know. I ummed and ahed anyway. I've decided to go with this idea instead. So I'm just going to place these in a pattern that will hopefully give the appearance of it not being such a straight piece of board. So I just need to play about with it first and work out how I want my pattern to be. So I'm thinking that if we do that like that, have that one at that side, so that they go on like so. So that's bringing that bit down, and then maybe another one like that.
6.5 hours later.
1, 2, 1, 2, 2 of them.
1 eternity later.
Once I'd finally decided on how I wanted these to look, I set about measuring and marking where each mould needed to be, and then I glued them all in place using E6000, my go-to glue. I'm not sure which took the longest, me deciding on the layout of these moulds or the time it took me to measure and mark them all out just to make sure that they were level and even at both sides. But it was worth it, the finished look was definitely worth it. Next it was time to prime, and I used Dixie Belle Slick Stick. This piece wasn't as shiny as the dresser that I made over, but it did have a bit of a sheen to it, so I decided to use the Slick Stick again. Now it was time to get some colour on, and I painted the legs and the plinth in the Dixie Belle Dusty Blue. And I always find it so much easier if you turn the piece upside down when you're painting the bottom. Now I had the drawers the right way up, I started playing around with the paints and deciding how I wanted the blending to look. Thank you so much for your helpful advice on blending that was left in the comments on the last furniture makeover. I am often my worst critic, and your comments were lovely. To be told it looked amazing and it was a lovely piece and my blending was fine, it really did help me. And I went into this one with a more open mind, and I was more open to just go with it and trust the process and see what happens. And at the end of the day, if it did go wrong, it is just a coat of paint over the top. So I went into this one with a much more relaxed view to the blending. I am far from an expert when it comes to blending, but this is what I can say. Make sure that both paints are wet and spritz it with water to help keep them wet. I used various brushes and looked at what I liked best, which brushes gave me the best results. And the big one for me that I really do need to remember is that the first coat is your practice coat, and I spent an age on this only to then paint over it with the second coat. I painted all the edges of the drawers and doing the underneath side as well, and for the top I decided just to paint it in the dusky blue colour and not bother blending the top. I don't half like making hard work for myself, so I mapped out a load of words to put on. And I did the word Parisian, and the idea was to put it in between, put it across the middle of the drawer. But I didn't really give it any thought, and I wasn't 100% sure which route I was going to go down at the time of creating this, and I've decided to put handles on. So when I hadn't given it much thought, I'd measured my space between where my knobs were going to go and mapped out the word to fit in between the knobs. That's not going to work now because the handles are going to come and you're going to miss half the wording because the handles are going to be in the way. Which is fine if you want to do that, but I don't. So painstakingly redrew the whole thing much smaller so that it's going to fit in between my handles. So I drew it out, I then traced it, I then penciled on the back, and now I have this tracing. I know I've got to put an E on the end, but I've got this tracing now which will fit in between my handles without any of the words being hidden. So I'm now going to transfer this onto here for painting. My tracing paper wasn't long enough, I'm such an idiot. Between my handles is 33 centimetres. I used 30 just as because it's a nice round figure. I did my thing 30 centimetres, but some of the letters were it was really difficult, and I thought if I go down to 30, I've got that little 3 centimetre leeway. I set about the mammoth task of measuring so that the word would go across the centre of the drawer.
"3:28 a.m. Tomorrow. 2,000 years later.
It's 25. What can that be? Why is this wrong? Okay, we're there. We're finally there. I have the word in place, so I now needed to draw around the letters and trace them onto the drawer. I painted on the letters in Parisian blue and silver. I did look at stencils and transfers for this piece before I started, but the stencils were not quite big enough, and I know that stenciling would have been a quicker way to do it, but I really enjoy painting, so doing it this way meant that I had the letters in the exact size that I wanted them to be, and I've ended up with a much more unique piece than I would have if I'd used a transfer. So I've been playing around with this pattern. I really think this is so pretty, but I've been playing around with this design, and I'm kind of thinking that I'm going to go across. So when I did the dressing table, I came diagonally across the front of it. Okay, the front was only a little, but I kind of came across in a diagonal. So I'm thinking of doing the same across these drawers. So this is going to be my bottom drawer. So I'm thinking of taking it all the way up, kind of across here and up along those lines. So I've pondered and pondered and pondered, and I think I just need to just go for it and just do it. Let's tell the supervisor I've put the washer on. Did you put the washer on? Yes. If you've seen some of my other videos, you'll have seen me decoupage with napkins. It's one of my favourites. You can make items look so pretty with decoupage. If you're new to this channel, then I do have a video on how to decoupage with napkins, and I will link that. But the main rules that I've found are: start in the centre and work your way out to avoid creases. Once the napkin is wet, don't touch it with your fingers or it will stick to them and you'll pull it back up off your project. Use a piece of plastic or a sponge to smooth the surface. I use a bit of both. I find sometimes one works better than the other, depending on the shape of the project. And once your napkin is dry, seal it with a coat of Mod Podge. I took the napkin over one drawer and into another, and when the napkin had just started to dry, not dry, just started to dry a little bit, I cut through where the edge of the drawer was and then smoothed down the rough edges. So I've been doing the other drawers by putting them against each other, and I've been able to do them on a flat surface, which is a whole lot easier than trying to do them in situ like this. Unfortunately, between these two drawers though, I've got this little bar that goes across, so I'm going to need to carry the pattern over the bar. So at least until I've got over this bit, I need to do it here. I might then go and take the drawer out and carry on away from here, but I don't know, I'll probably just leave it in. Because you could see the gap in the numbers, and because it looked better when the drawer was opened, I painted into the edge of the drawer. I also did the same with the napkin. It just gave it a much better finished off look when you open the drawers. Okay, I'm in a really tight space here. This is going to be really awkward, but hopefully you'll be able to get the gist of what I'm doing. So I've measured down from the top at both sides to make sure that I've got this stencil on straight. And I don't want to just have a full block of writing. I want there to be bits missing. I'm just going to take some masking tape and I'm going to mask off some of the lettering. We'll get rid of that bit. I've got two lines coming down. Take this bit out. I didn't just want to use one block of colour on this, so I used the Perusian blue again and some white, and I just put the two of them over the lettering, so where you've got the pale blue, that's where it's mixed with the white, and I just went more white in places, more dark blue in places, and just sort of blended it all in. I think I actually threw a bit of silver in there as well for good measure. I absolutely love how this lettering looks. I think it looks amazing. I'm so pleased with how that turned out. A bit more decoupaging and the sides were complete. I was umming and ahhing about leaving the top plain, but I love the writing on the side so much that I decided to do the writing on top as well. When this set of drawers is in place, you're not actually going to be able to see the sides, which is a bit gutting considering they're so amazing. But I thought, oh, I'll just pop a bit of writing on the top. I used a bit of silver ribbon buff to highlight the moulds and the raised areas on the legs. The whole thing got 3 coats of Polar Flawless Lacquer. I found these handles on Amazon and I thought that they were so pretty, but unfortunately they were not available in silver. So after a Google search, ribbon buff seemed to be a popular choice to use on handles. It was really easy to use. I just rubbed it on with my finger and then left it to dry, and they just look fab. I'm so pleased with them. I've made myself a template because these had knobs on. I've only got one hole, and I'm going to put handles on, so I need to drill an extra hole. So I've measured on this piece of paper to where my current hole is and to where I'm going to need to drill a new hole. All I had left to do now was to drill the holes and pop the handles on. So let's have a reminder and see it then. And let's see it now. How fabulous did this turn out? I absolutely love it. I know I say that about all my projects, but this one looks amazing. I'm so glad I persevered with those legs. But let me know what you think. Do you prefer this one or do you prefer the dresser? I love them both. I can't make my mind up. Leave me a comment, let me know what you think. For the next video, I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm moving away from the guest bedroom and I've been issued with an editor challenge. So that's going to be a little bit different, and there'll be more about that nearer the time. The guest bedroom is coming along quite nicely and there will be some updates on that as well. So if you don't want to miss out on any of this, do make sure that you subscribe. You can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram. I will leave a list of the products that I used in the description just in case you're interested in any of those. And before I go, I just want to say again, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your support. and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye!